Well, we were wrong. This is a very happy recap. I'm Ron Juckett. It's 10 after 8 on this Thursday, I don't even know what the hell day it is. It's Wednesday, right? The Wednesday, the 11th of October, and the Washington Nationals have somehow forced Game 5 of this National League Divisional Series with a 5-0 shutout win. I haven't even opened up the box score yet of the Chicago Cubs. And I'm going to eat some crow right in front of you. Here, give me a bite of crow. Actually, it's a chicken salad. It's a chicken salad, or a salad with chicken. But Ricky Keeler, my goodness, what a night, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely got to eat a lot of crow. Ron will eat double the crow for both of us because I already ate already. But definitely Steven Strasburg. This is the shut up the critics flu game. 12 strikeouts, absolutely dominant. Changeup was great. Breaking ball was great. And what can you say about Michael Taylor, who's having a coming out party to everybody outside of D.C. for his plate discipline, being able to stay in the same at-bat despite two different pitchers, and to hit a grand slam off Wade Davis was absolutely the most surprising point of the night. And you have to think, even though Hendricks will go tomorrow for the Cubs, and we'll see who the Nats throw at least to start Game 5, the Nats have all the momentum going back home.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Your totals on this amazing day. 5 runs, 5 hits in an error for Washington. They've evened this best of 5 at 2. The Cubs are shut out. No runs, 3 hits and 2 errors. Michael A. Taylor with a grand slam in the 8th inning. Again, that's the big inning for the Nats as soon as the Cubs get to that bullpen. And what about Steven Strasburg? 12 strikeouts over 7 innings.
Everything was working today. I mean, he had that rough moment in the 2nd inning, but he got the ground out to Baez, and that was a huge turning point in the ballgame because once he got out of that stressful inning at 36 pitches, it was just simple, get the ground ball outs, get the strikeouts. Nothing really was hit hard after that point, and he did have a couple of walks, but he was using that changeup every time he needed a strikeout. And as Jeff Passan of Yahoo tweeted, something we pointed out throughout the entire second half, that changeup's been unhittable the way he's been dominant over the last 2 months.
Well, it certainly was tonight, wasn't it? I forget how many strikeouts came on the changeup, but you just couldn't hit it. You just couldn't. He threw 106 pitches overall, and 72 of them for strikes. Ryan Manson, boy, the Cubs tried to work him hard, including Anthony Rizzo. 27 pitches for 16 strikes, and Sean Doolittle with an easy 12-pitch outing for 9 strikes. Jake Arrieta did keep his team in the game. That's all you could really ask for. And John Lester threw 3 2/3 innings and allowed one earned run and struck out 3. But if you thought that there would be bullpen troubles coming into this series, you must be surprised that it'd be the Cubs that had it, not necessarily the Nats.
Yeah, you rarely ever see Joe Madden go to that. He did it actually the last week of the season, used the pitcher, and then took him out in the middle of an at-bat. But it was really strange. Edwards couldn't find the plate. Now, the rain, I think, had to play a factor, but he walks Matt Wieters, I think it was on 4 pitches, gives up the ball 1 to Taylor. And I think everybody was surprised that Davis was coming in at that point because it's a non-safe situation. You know, closers don't usually fare well in those kind of spots. And Davis hadn't given up a home run in the postseason since 2010. That's how memorable this Taylor home run was. And you think about how deep this Nats lineup is. Trey Turner finally got involved and had a double, and that led to the Nats' first run of the game, even though Addison Russell helped out. Murphy at least got a hit. Rendon got on base when he needed it and picked up a double. So Nats' offense isn't all the way back yet. It's getting there, and I think the one guy you're waiting for is Bryce Harper to break out. He's still a little bit behind going into Game 5.
You're right, but it really did kind of change once Turner got that double, and I think people started to relax a little bit. Now, this one stat that will surprise you the most, maybe not, because they really had their chances and couldn't take advantage of them. They went 1 for 7 tonight with runners in scoring position. Of course, that one was the grand slam. But, you know, we talked about it earlier off air. They just seemed like they had their chances and just could not do anything with it. And all of a sudden, bam, they drew 9 walks tonight. 9 walks.
Judo says hi to your wife in the background, by the way.
That's not my wife.
Not your wife? Oh, okay. So Judo, you're wrong on that one.
No, that's my guy Hamza.
Oh, okay.
Wait for the camera. There you go. And literally, I am eating dinner as we're going here. So
All right.
Sarah was on earlier at noontime today because of the breaking news about Strasburg. And considering where we were 8.5 hours ago, I mean, did you ever think that this was coming? Not necessarily that they weren't going to win, that they could win. I mean, obviously, you knew that they could.
We didn't think they could win yesterday, though. I mean, after Monday, we didn't think they were going to win.
Right, but after everything that's happened in the last 48 hours, we sat here at noontime today going, oh, my goodness.
We thought what a disaster it was going to look like once they lose. And to be fair, Strasburg changed the narrative. I mean, I was listening to the TBS pregame show, and I think it was Rollins who said this. This is a legacy game for him. If he comes out there and dominates, he changes the narrative like he did in game one. And you can't look at these two dominant postseason starts and tell me Steven Strasburg isn't looked at differently now in baseball for it. I mean, he's getting up there with the Chris Sales and the Justin Verlanders and the Max Scherzers and the Clayton Kershaws because he's pitching like it. Oh. Would anybody be surprised if he threw an out for game 5 tomorrow like Kershaw did? Because I'd throw him right back out there.
If they needed it, I'm sure that they would.
Because right now, who on the Cubs sees this guy well? I think he's had in the last 4 starts against the Cubs since last year about 36, 37 strikeouts. It's unbelievable how much he dominates that lineup. I mean, Chris Bryant can't even make contact off of him.
He had a 4 strikeout night.
Trying to look up how many strikeouts he's had in the series. It's been pretty ugly for him.
They've had a lot.
Bryant has had 9 strikeouts in 4 games. I feel like that's a little low. All right, so we're gonna play who is taking the most pitches in the Nats lineup tonight. Now I'll give you because I got ESPN always has this. Mm-hmm. There was a total of 6 players that saw over 20 pitches. Nobody in the lineup saw fewer than 18. That was Trey Turner, saw 18 pitches, which is pretty good for him over 5 at-bats. All right, so which player saw the most pitches in 5 at-bats tonight?
5 at-bats. Well, Harper walked twice. I'm going to say Harper.
You're close. Harper saw 26. There was one more who saw more pitches. It was a key at-bat in a ball game.
You don't want to watch me chewing, so go ahead and tell me.
Right, it's Anthony Rendon with 27. You saw that he had the walk against Edwards, I believe, in the 8th inning that got it to 27.
And that was a big walk for sure.
So Anthony Rendon seems to be back to his old self. Even Zimmerman drew a walk in this game. He got 21. Murphy saw 22. Weeder saw 21 with a couple of walks. Taylor saw 19. And Jason Worth, who I'm sure still is not real liked in DC circles after that bases-loaded strikeout against Arrieta in the 4th, he saw 22.
The key to that at-bat, though, even though it didn't score any runs, and I'll get to that your point in a second, Judo, is that it still took a lot of pitches and pretty much forced Arrieta out of the game. Now, Lester went out and threw lights out, but that's the objective. They got the Cubs starter out after 4 innings. And Judo says, I don't agree with your take on if he didn't start. If he started and looked awful, then when you found out he was in bad shape, everyone will be saying, why didn't you do that? Why didn't you say anything, rather? I think the beat writers had it right last night or this afternoon. If they had just said Strasburg is sick, we're unsure of his status for the day, had the flu-like symptoms, I don't think anyone would question it. But the stories about mold and asthma and jogging.
This was screwed up by the PR, by Dusty, by Rizzo, who Mike Maddox had made comments, had heard from Strasburg before Rizzo went on 106.7 this morning. That's not a good look either when your GM goes on and not knowing what's happening. There's still some mixed line of communications, and that's something we can talk about once the series is over or once the postseason is over. They have to fix that. Strasburg still, I think, has some questions to answer too, maybe about how he could have communicated it better. But you're definitely, I think you're on point. I mean, especially we don't know how he was feeling. We don't know. And that's all they had to say was he's sick. We're going to evaluate his status tomorrow. They shouldn't have ruled him out yesterday. I mean, I think that was the mistake that they made. But definitely, if he's pitching like that on antibiotics and IVs, I mean, that's insane what he performed today.
send me over some of those antibiotics, okay? and Judo, I think, is right. I don't think it was Stras's fault in this case. And he's not saying that just because you look incredible. You know, in the end, I think you're right, Judo. You know, I think the Nats has completely misplayed it and created themselves a distraction that they clearly did not need. But
wasted a lot of people's hot takes.
Oh, my goodness. I had an article I had to jump today because of it. I don't like that. So what are you seeing from Michael Taylor that we hadn't seen before?
It's something I think we've seen really since he took over for Michael Taylor. And I mean, it's not Michael Taylor, took over for Adam Eaton. Was he's seeing more pitches at the plate. He's not chasing pitches out of the zone. And even I liked some of his bats earlier in the game. He got kind of really messed up on the Laz Diaz not appealing to first base earlier in the game, which I think ruined one of his at-bats. And then he had a good at-bat against Lester, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Yeah. So he has just go out there and he works the pitcher every single time. I mean, this is far from the guy that was chasing pitches earlier in the year and always swinging with 2 strikes. He's going up there. Maybe he's not getting a hit, but he's being very productive.
That is new, because when he first got hot, it was because he would swing at the first or second pitch with that broom style swing. Is what he started taking counts that it didn't go well. But obviously that has changed. Oh, I just saw a picture of me with a chip in my mouth. Isn't that nice? And yes, Judo, maybe it really was 13-dimensional chess. I'm sorry. I only go up to 8.
Considering Joe Madden said he thought there was an inkling that Strasburg was going to pitch this game, I don't know if they were playing chess, checkers, anything like that. Madden, this is courtesy of our buddy Ryan Davis from FanRag and Sporting News we had before the series. Madden said about Strasburg, he had everything going on tonight. If you don't get him early in the count, it's really difficult. Especially, how many of those strikeouts came on full counts? Hayward worked it full. I think it was a couple other batters who worked it full. Rizzo, I think, got from 3 out and struck out, I think, on one of those bats.
First time through the lineup, they really worked him hard. And then after that, he just kind of dominated.
And the Cubs got messed up by the wind. Now, I know the Nats did, too. That was a good break. That ball crushed by Addison Russell stayed in the park, because that looked like 2-0 the second he hit it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think that was the beginning, because Zobrist hits the hanging breaking ball, gets the double. You get the man on third, and we're all thinking, once Hayward walks, why are they pitching to Baez? You have Arrieta in the on-deck circle. So then with bases loaded, base loaded for Arrieta would have been a familiar matchup, but to get first and third and get that ground out from Baez was the biggest out in the game, because it got the Nats, I think, more loose at that point. And even Strasburg had good at-bats in this game.
At one point today, during the game, I said the weather is wearing an Nats jersey today. And you go back to that home run that wasn't, or even the Taylor shot. I mean, there was a 20-mile-an-hour wind blowing in from right field. That ball was absolutely torched. Oh, I guess the cat is now making cameo appearances on camera. You get everybody tonight.
Madden also said it will be Kyle Hendricks tomorrow with Jose Quintana ready to back up if necessary.
All right. That's not a huge surprise.
No. And honestly, that's the best matchup, because we were all surprised John Lester threw out of the bullpen tonight, and he was fantastic. Was really perfect up until that 8th inning. His line ends up being 3 2/3, 1 run, 1 hit, 3 strikeouts, 1 walk on 55 pitches, 32 strikes. But you look how this series has gone. The 2 pitchers the Nats have struggled against the most are Kyle Hendricks and Jose Quintana.
I'm seeing Judo saying, Dusty's, it was mold. I think it was mold. Reminded me of trying to tell a half-truth to my dad. Yeah, I got a few different calls from a few different places before I took my car in the shop. It was mold. They definitely need to be more aggressive on the Hendricks tomorrow than they were in game 1. They were too passive in game 1 and then too aggressive in game 2. Now they just need to kind of go out and attack him and hope to make contact.
Yeah, that's where you got to hope the strategy of facing a guy like Hendricks a second time works. The Nats, they've just never hit him in his career. Daniel Murphy had 2 homers against him in August, and that was really the only offense they had in that game. They just got to go out there and look for anything up in the zone. You don't chase anything down. If Hendricks is going to throw the ball down and lay off those pitches, because that's going to be a key in this game. You can't have ground ball outs constantly. They've got to put more balls in the outfield against this guy. And I think that leads to the question, do you play Jason Worth in left field tomorrow? And everybody's going to ask that. And I think you got to keep the same lineup you did today. Whatever's working, Dusty's got to go with.
Yeah, you go with it again tomorrow. You can always give a quick hook. if you need to. You have them there, but again, even the strikeout with the bases loaded, which was not optimal. You have a case of, look, they took so many pitches that it chased Arrieta. You kind of have to. Judo says Seth was right. Cubby's crib DoDCast helped. We're sorry. Not sorry.
Dodgers Way says they're happy that we're playing in Game 5.
I would be too.
Clayton Kershaw awaits the winner of tomorrow night's game.
If they win, it's a 1 day's rest.
Cross-country flight.
Against a fully rested Clayton Kershaw. Good luck with that. But, hey.
You got to get there.
You got to get there, and that's all that matters. I think they have to be encouraged going in. And, of course, the Cubs lost in almost, one of those in the worst possible ways today. The grand slam, the bullpen not being able to even slam the door despite the fact that Lester pitched an absolute gem.
They don't have a reliable bridge to Davis. That's something we've learned in this series is they can't trust Strop to get key outs. They can't trust Montgomery to get key outs. And Montgomery was warming up a couple of times and didn't get into the game today. Mm-hmm. Edwards has been hit or miss. Justin Wilson, we finally saw him for the first time in this series. So it's going to probably be Hendricks for 4 or 5, Quintana for 2, and then hope to heck that you get 6 outs from Wade Davis tomorrow. The Nats, I think, are more set up to go with any combination of Tanner Roark, Gio Gonzalez, and then the bullpen.
Yeah, and you have Max Scherzer. Or if you have a big enough lead, then you don't use Scherzer, and voila, or big enough deficit. I should be honest, but voila, here you go. It's Game 5 all over again from last year. It's Game 1. I mean, it's Scherzer and Kershaw.
Nice tweet by Pedro Martinez, who just tweeted 5 minutes ago. Outstanding outing by Strasburg, was consistent, attacking the strike zone, and with a strong state of mind during the game. Just saying something, saying who knows how his mind was actually at during this game. By the way, I'd like to take the shameless Game 5 score update that Didi Gregorius has a first-inning home run off Corey Kluber, and the Yankees are up 1-0 after 1 in Game 5. Wow. I have 2 Game 5, a Game 4 today and a Game 5 now. It's been a topsy-turvy emotional day so far.
That is true. So what are you looking forward to most tomorrow?
I want to see how this team comes out tomorrow. I want to see a team that goes out there, hopefully gets a couple runs early. I mean, this is where you're going in the game. You got to be loud. You got to be into it. You can't be worried about what happened 5 years ago on the very same day, because our own Drew Douglas pointed out the Nats lost Game 5 to the Cardinals 5 years ago tomorrow. So you can't be worrying about those things. You got to go out there and just cheer your team, and hopefully they come out and get a win. But they need to score first, because we still don't know who's starting this game. We'll try to get, as soon as I figure it out here on Twitter, I'll let you know. I think, and I don't know if you agree, Ron, I think they're going to give it to Tanner Roark just because they messed him up so much the last 24 hours. And that's not a bad matchup. Go back to August. Tanner Roark pitched toe-to-toe with Hendricks at Wrigley. I'm okay if that's the pitching matchup.
I would agree. I would think to see what Tanner gives you. You have plenty of people behind you. It's all hands on deck again. The only one you don't have available is Strasburg. You didn't see Kinsler. You saw a hard inning out of Manson. And I think if Doolittle needs to, adrenaline would get him through 5 or 6 outs if he needs it. Judo says, I think Gio for 4, Max for 2, then the law firm or something close to that. No, I think you see Roark at the start tomorrow. Just because he would have had the start for this one. There's no reason not to start him. Same thing. If there's a crooked number that goes up on the board early, then you bring in the pen. You're not safe. There's still okay. There is a tomorrow now, but once they get going, there is no guarantee. So you go through and. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things where it was the same situation again today. You had Steven Strasburg at 88 pitches in the 7th inning of a 1-0 game. And I don't know, I think you were getting the questions, Rob, but I was getting the questions of how do you approach that inning? Do you leave Strasburg in the game in a 1-0 ball game? And I said yes, because it's different from what Scherzer was dealing with, because Strasburg looked more in control. I mean, Scherzer was starting to fatigue and leave pitches up. So Strasburg goes out there, strikes out Zobrist swinging with a changeup, strikes out Russell swinging a changeup, and then strikes out Hayward swinging at a changeup. I mean, that was as dominant a seventh inning on that many pitches as I think we've seen in a long time.
I would have actually pinch hit for Strasburg because he was the first first batter of the seventh inning. He was the leadoff hitter. In the 1-0 game, you needed a second run. It worked out fine. I mean, you've made a good argument why you leave him in, but I would not have been upset at that point if you had seen Lind or Kendrick come up to pinch hit. I mean, you're figuring it's still the Cubs, and one run probably wasn't going to do it, but it all worked out.
I disagreed only because I think at that stage in the game, you have to be in a position to where it's got to be Strasburg throwing as much as he can until he's done, because you have, I think, Sean Doolittle, I would think, would have been available to get 4 outs if you needed him to. You needed Strasburg to hand it to Madsen and hand it to Doolittle. I don't think you could have afforded 9 outs with a 1-0 lead with the bullpen. I think he at least had to get through that 7th inning, and he looked fantastic. And there was no signs in those 2 innings prior that he was slowing down.
It certainly helped. Judo says, I'm kind of optimistic. I'm kind of pessimistic tomorrow with Hendricks pitching. We will see, though. Here's the thing.
It's fair. Let me give you an update. Dusty from George Castillo, the Post, hasn't decided who will start tomorrow. It'll be either Gonzalez or Roark. Both could end up pitching anyway. So we will. There we go. That's how yesterday should have been handled. We don't know who's pitching. We'll tell you tomorrow.
You'll find out. You'll find out at 8 o'clock when we do.
Our buddy RK Jr. Tweeted us Roark's stat line August 4th. This was the start against Hendricks. 6 1/3, 5 hits, 2 runs, 4 strikeouts, 3 walks. I'll sign up for that tomorrow. Just keep the rain away, please. Jeez,
that is true.
Watching them play in that was like, you wonder what the weather would have been like yesterday.
Someone later said I did poor. I think it was Ernie Johnson television. So you don't want to start and stop. The forecast was better, and at one point you asked me that, and I channeled my inner Al Roker and then looked at the radar, and it didn't look that terrible over Chicago. It obviously wasn't very comfortable and pleasant at Wrigley Field tonight, but it wasn't in the case of yellow and orange on the radar. Let me go back to Hendricks for a second. I think Madden was right to use Lester. You win today, you're off. So you kind of go all in on that, and he figured that his bullpen could kind of hold it, which didn't happen. You've seen Hendricks once recently, but you got to figure the Cubs are going to be on the wrong side of the momentum shift because it was their closer that blew the game. Even though they were behind, I mean, that turned into a 5-0 game in a hurry. And so, yes, there's pressure on the Nats because of Chip Lohmiller missing a field goal in 1997 or whatever. But there's the Cubs who had the chance to put this away. And look, Dusty Baker won an elimination game. Wasn't he 0 for his last 9?
Dusty Baker has won an elimination game since I've been here.
So well, guess what? He won an elimination game tonight. And
the only thing that scares you would be Hendricks did pitch in Game 7 of the World Series last year. This kind of stage is not going to phase him. Gio now, remember, 5 years ago, who was the starter for the Nats in Game 5 against St. Louis?
Gio
Gonzalez. So maybe he has his own little postseason demons to sort of get away. Although I don't think Gio pitched bad in that game. It's really the bullpen. But you look at Tanner Roark. I mean, this is a guy that did pitch in the World Baseball Classic and pitched well against Japan in that semifinal game, which it's not the same equivalent to a do-or-die Game 5, but it's as close as you're going to get for an exhibition. He pitched in Game 2 last year. Gio pitched okay in Game 2. Whatever you're looking for Gio and Roark, you're looking for them to just keep your offense in the game and maybe hope that you can get Trey Turner on base early, that you can get Worth on base early. And if you get those run-scoring chances, they can't afford to leave bases loaded like they did today and expect to win tomorrow. If you get those opportunities, you got to drive in runs quickly.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing is that, last year in Game 4, they lost and then flew across the country to play Game 5. This year, they won Game 4. So this flight, even though it's shorter, is going to be a lot more optimistic than it was last year.
The Cubs did not want to travel back to to DC for this. Judo said, glad nobody got injured with the rain tonight, in all seriousness. Yeah, that was crazy.
Wasn't it?
Nobody could grip the ball late in the game.
And
You worried Max was going to throw 6 wild pitches. Like he crossed up Matt Wieters and hit him in the arm on a pitch.
I'm surprised that Madden didn't go out and try to stall. Usually when managers don't like playing conditions, they'll go out and say a few words to the crew chief. Now, I'm sure, Madden probably would have gotten tossed saying a lot of words to Laz Diaz behind the plate tonight. But usually in conditions like that, you try to stall. Or there was some diamond dust thrown around the bases, but the Cubs never tended the mound. And so as they're watching their pitchers go through and struggle with the grip because it was a chilly night tonight, they never helped out their own cause.
Not at all.
Judo says, I think if we get into the middle innings and hand it over to Max with lead for a few innings, I think we're good. Yeah, I think you could see from Scherzer potentially what you saw from Lester tonight, 2-3 innings of shutdown baseball and get it to the law firm.
All right, so let's have a little bit of fun here because I just saw this from Henry Schulman from the San Francisco Chronicle, I want to say he's from, if I'm correct. I'll just make sure real quick. Yes, the giant beat writer for the San Francisco Chronicle. There might be a little bit more emotional boost and a little bit of irony tomorrow. The first pitch will be thrown out by none other than Michael Morse.
Oh, really?
They love Michael Morse in D.C.
Something like that.
Yeah, I feel bad his career ended on that brawl in San Francisco.
Will Hunter Strickland be there to catch it?
I think Judo, would you like that if Hunter Strickland just magic came out to catch that?
All right, I'm all set with the salad. Okay.
That's crazy. But I think the crowd will be pumped up with Morse. I think that's a great candidate. But I agree. Remember, Max Scherzer has done it in 2011 against the Yankees, and then a couple years later against the Oakland A's. He's used to pitching out of the pen in the postseason. Quintana's not. So I think even that's a new experience for him. Lester's used to it. So I wasn't surprised he was that good. But if you can chase Hendricks early, like get a couple runs on the board, that would be huge. And maybe that's where a guy like Daniel Murphy hopefully can deliver, and like he did on August 4th and hit with those 2 home runs.
Well, if you can just put that creeping doubt into the heads of the Cubs.
You need to put doubt in their head before the doubt in the seats gets a little bit higher.
Absolutely. All right, man. Leave those there. Okay. And I'm going to have to take a pill.
So definitely. So I think you look at this game, I'm a little bit concerned about Madsen. I mean, he's been really the one pitcher that he had the hit in game 1 to Rizzo and then struggled a little bit tonight. He's really been the lone relief pitcher that has not pitched well in this series. Does that lead to multiple outs from Brandon Kinsler tomorrow? That's where I wonder if maybe Madsen struggles, maybe affects how Dusty goes about the bullpen tomorrow night.
Judo says, what about Papelbon catching Morris's first? I think that might go over about as well as Strickland would. I'll take the rest of those. I think it's a case of if Madsen feels like he can go, he's gonna go. Because this is how Dusty works, and if they have the chance to do it now, if Scherzer somehow, if the trio gets into the 7th or 8th inning, then maybe it's just straight Doolittle. But
I love that 6 outs of Doolittle.
That's a nice problem to have.
And he's looked great in the 2 games he's pitched. He gave the hit to Russell in game 2. Besides that, his stuff looks explosive in the 2 games.
Well, thanks for bearing with me while I eat dinner. All right. Anything you said on Twitter? No, Ricky gave the stat that Slick Pola gave.
Trying to see. I'm good. Trying to look at the beat writers here, see if Dusty said anything else.
And as you said, the Dodgers have every right to be happy about the Cubs and the Nats playing a Game 5.
Where do you think the Cubs' confidence is at right now? Because, again, everybody talks about how bad the Nats' offense has been. I haven't seen anybody break out in the Cubs outside of that first baseman, Anthony Rizzo.
And they've gotten away with it, too.
They're going to have to put Schwarber in the lineup tomorrow.
Oof. Oh, yeah.
Hayward's done nothing.
Is it possible for Schwarber to play all 3 outfield positions?
You're probably seeing Schwarber, Jay, I guess it depends on if it's lefty righty, because now you have to think about that on how Madden's going to go about his lineup.
Yeah,
but Schwarber's got to play.
Judo asked serious question: if we do win tomorrow, do you give up game 1 to Kershaw? I think it depends, Judo, on who has to pitch tomorrow. You know, if it can be done with just Roark and Gio or a combination thereof in the pen, no, you're going to have Scherzer pitching game 1, or that's a good thing to have.
You have to have the same mindset I think you had in this series. If it is get that far, you have to get a split in LA, and then take your chances against Darvish, Wood, and then Kershaw in a potential game 5 in DC. That's really what it comes down to.
You can change a roster spot, can't you, or no?
Yes, you can. I think LA is talking about making changes for this.
So maybe that's where you might see an AJ Cole come up.
You would think in a best of 7, you're going to have a long man.
Right. And so he could conceivably start game 1. You would go with Scherzer on close to full rest in game 2, and you have the off day, and then go again with Strauss and Roar. So it is not inconceivable, if that was the case, that someone like Cole would come up. Now it's Kershaw, and so your chances are, well, not great anyway. But I don't think they give up. I think there actually would be some pretty good momentum if they actually do break the game 5 jinx.
It's a monkey off their back.
Absolutely, and boy, am I on quite the delay. seeing my face on here.
Mark Feinstein of MLB.com. Dusty was asked, what Strasburg say when he was told he was out? Dusty said, well, that's why we traded for those guys. So even Strasburg knew at that point he was done, and they have full faith in the bullpen. And you saw it when they traded for those guys, just the confidence they have in those two, that they get the job done. I mean, Brandon Kintzler, as weird as that was in game 3, got the job done with a double play. It was just an unconventional double play.
Bend but don't break, and that's what this bullpen has done in the postseason. Even though in limited at-bats, the Cubs have hit the bullpen hard.
The only mistake Strasburg made in this game was throwing that ball to first base on the Contreras one, because that could have been really costly. Threw it, hit Contreras' cleat and went over the tarp. That was probably after the second, the one spot where he got himself in a little bit of trouble. I think it was the 6th inning, if I remember correctly. Yeah,
and they worked out of it. And no, I was not taking communion there a few minutes ago. I just saw that. So, yeah. All right. Anything else? Because I know you want to watch the Yankee game. And
all I see is Strasburg is at the podium.
All right. We'll hold
so who knows what Strasburg might say.
What's your X factor tomorrow?
Speed. You got to find a way to steal run via small ball. Now, the Nats are doing it the hard way. They're scoring runs via home runs. I mean, 9 of their 12 runs have been the 8th inning in this series. They have to score before the 8th inning tomorrow if they want to win. But my X factor, I think, is going to be how they handle. It's going to be speed with Turner. If he gets on, he's got to try to steal a base at some point. And I think the pitching staff. I mean, how Baker uses these pitchers in the same way Madden. But how do both of these teams line their rotations? Because the Cubs are probably in a better mood right now because at least they have Hendricks, who dominated game 1, and Quintana, who dominated in game 3. You're really not sure what Gio or Roark can do. They won't. And that's the fun part about this series. They played 18 times dating back to last year. 15 of these games are 3 runs or fewer. Again, there's no reason to expect that there's going to be a blowout one way or the other tomorrow. It's going to be 3.5 hours, 4 hours of biting fingernails and pins and needles and all that fun stuff.
It'll be past midnight. It'll actually be Friday the 13th by the time that game is over, because it's an 8:08 first pitch tomorrow. Judo says, one thing I'll say about Strauss, he strikes me as a man of few words. Just because he isn't screaming at Mike, I don't think that means he doesn't want it. Judo, when I talked with Buster Olney in the interview that never taped, we talked about several things, and one was a fist bump after a double play, and the clincher in the 8th inning, which no one had ever seen before. But he also talked about him being the first or second player out of the dugout after the Marlins had lost to the Braves and coming out to thank the fans. I think this really means a lot to him. And Judo Joker says, "Go Yankees." And so Strasburg is a man of few words, and I think that works to his advantage. But I think the whole confusion for today kind of goes into his personality, because he is a man of such few words. and has a reputation of, in the past, you could see where people would kind of misthink that. And in the end, that really was on the Nats. That wasn't on Strasburg. That's
not at all.
Anyway.
But you're right. He is a man of few words. And that's why when you see him with the emotion on the dugout, when he's pumping his fist after strikeouts, I think he did that in the 6th inning when he got out of that jam. He's definitely shown more emotion this year than the past. And we talk about the word diva thrown around, and I know that was used a lot this afternoon. He's a creature of habit. He went a long way in bucking that trend. I don't know if he's fully gotten past that, but to now put 20-something odd strikeouts on your resume in a 2-game postseason, that's definitely something that people will remember more so now than what happened 5 years ago. That's a great thing for him.
Judo, they didn't play yesterday. So which they got back some run support yesterday. They didn't play yesterday. Remember?
We forget. We're throwing dates around. We forget all the dates.
Right. No, it's true. And you're right. If they'd scored a run for Monday. So my X factor is I think you finally see not necessarily for us a breakout moment, but a breakout moment on national television for either Harper or Zimmerman. Here is the chance of, okay, you got me to game 5. It's now time for me to put you on my back, boys, and win this.
FanRag had this as Strasburg avoided the question of his teammates reaching out to him and imploring him to step up and pitch today. So on our last part, before we close the book on this, do you think somebody got to him and told him?
I'm sure someone told him to
a certain agent, you think got to him and told him to pitch?
I think maybe some phone calls were made to a certain agent to tell him to get his buttocks down there and pitch.
But I agree with you on the point you were making. Ryan Zimmerman has been huge in this series. He's definitely – I know Stern told me before the series that he didn't think he was critical. Look at the job he's done in this series. The double in game 3, the home run in game 2.
Foul out catch in the
6th. I think it was the 6th inning or one of those middle innings. And his ability to get on base in the 5th inning game 2. I mean, the way with Bryce Harper's struggles – he's maybe a superstar, too much to be an X factor. I need to see Bryce Harper have a huge game. I mean, he did have 2 walks today, which is a good thing. He's still just a little bit behind the fastball. Maybe with more at-bats, it's going to change. But I don't expect Hendricks or any of those Cubs pitchers to throw many fastballs at him. They don't have the velocity to get it by him.
Lots of good things to go into. Just the fact that they're playing a game 5. Considering, I mean, realistically, the Nats now actually lead the run difference in the series because they won by 5 tonight. So they've scored, I think, 3 or 4 more than the Cubs. But, this really felt like the Cubs had beat them soundly in both the losses. And if you looked at the stats for the series, it was 8-7. It was only a 1 run separating the 2 teams in 3 games.
Zuckerman had it. Strasburg went to bed thinking he had a little chance of pitching. Then I woke up and I was like, okay, let's do it.
Well, nothing like a good night's sleep. I fell asleep last night at 8:30. honest to goodness. I put the hockey game on, and the cat came and cuddled with me, and that was it. I was gone. So, all right. Well, the good news is that we have 1 more game to go, and we will be with you after that game tomorrow or Friday morning at midnight to go through. It's just Ricky and I tomorrow night. And
I'm tweeting with you.
Yeah, Ricky will tweet it.
I hope I'm not bad luck like last year. I tweeted game 5 last year. I really hope I'm different this time.
And then we will be with you on Saturday at some point. He must have borrowed Max Scherzer's pillow. Good one, Judo.
Remember, tomorrow night is an 8:08 first pitch on TBS.
Yes, and so we will be with you regardless of what happens Saturday, either to wrap up the season or to try to give a preview of the Dodgers series.
We wouldn't preview that Friday?
Oh, that's right, Friday. Judo, I don't know what day it is either.
Well, they did announce if the Nats do play in LA, game 1 is Saturday night at 8 o'clock and Sunday night at 7:30. So
we will be with you Friday night regardless of what happens tomorrow night, Friday morning. Mm-hmm. There, that's the point I was trying to make, to get you set up for Saturday's potential game 1. There. Drew will have the takeaways of game 4. I will have the storylines for game 5. That's probably all we'll run tomorrow. You can follow Rick at Rickinator555.
I'll be tweeting during the Yankee game if you want to join me for that.
That's right. So remember, he is not Nat's Twitter on his own account. Okay? I am not Nat's Twitter on my own account unless I'm tweeting about the name.
We forgot to ask Ron about John Farrell today.
Oh,
this is a fun. Oh, wait, hold on. Strasburg asked if he felt he had something to prove. It's from Todd Dybus of the Washington Times. He said, "Not to you guys, no."
And he's right. He's absolutely
way to go. That's a good one.
He has every right to be upset at, I guess, our behavior because we're part of the press today.
No, I think it was more at a certain couple people, certain David Ross last night at ESPN, who said he couldn't look him in the eye if he was his teammate.
Right. But he pitched a gem.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he allowed 3 home runs and they lost, he at least came out and did his job. So anyway, what do I think of Farrell getting fired? The names popping around are Brad Ausmus, Jim Leyland. I think he had to go, regardless of what it was. I mean, there are certain rumors that make the rounds about Red Sox players and management and female reporters, and I think that actually did happen. And that's just not acceptable behavior. I don't care who you are. I know they're consenting adults, but that's just not acceptable behavior, and it happens way too much in Boston.
Farrell command of that clubhouse because
no, he didn't.
You had the whole thing with Machado, and you had the Price Eckersley thing, and that alone would get any manager fired.
Well, and Pedroia is Pedroia, and he is a derriere. He's a pain in the derriere. But as Boston would say, he's our pain in the derriere. And he never really controlled that. They did not hit home runs this year. The fact that they even made games at Fenway Park just kind of shows you it was more of a weakness on Houston's pitching than for the Red Sox. It depends on who they find for the job. I think we'll say a lot about whether or not they should have gotten rid of Farrell because the man made the playoffs 2 years in a row and won a World Series in the last 5 years. Now, it was feast or famine. It was first place or last place. But if you're going to sit there and fire our first place manager, you really need to have legitimate reasons. And I'm really, for the Red Sox, it's too bad that Lovullo is in Arizona because he was the next natural manager. So I'll be curious to see what they do.
The name Alex Cora, I think, makes too much sense. It makes sense for a lot of these jobs, but
absolutely every job.
Dombrowski wants a guy with experience, and there's not many of those guys out there. But if you're going to take a shot on a first-time guy, once the Astros run is done, Alex Cora is going to get a lot of interviews.
Without question. All right. So you can follow me at Ron Juckett on Twitter, him at Rickinator555, and he will be tweeting about the Yankees, and he doesn't care. District on Deck is where you go for us on Twitter, on Facebook, and of course, districtondeck.com. And so Ricky will be with you for Game 5 and host Game 5. We will have a show regardless of what happens on Friday, whether it's Ricky's last show or we go another week with Mr. Keeler, our good luck pet. Then we hope that that's the case because we're not ready for this to be done. So it's going to be a busy couple days, and we're so glad that you'd spent some time with us. For Ricky Keeler and the rest of the staff at District on Deck, I'm Ron Juckett. Have yourself a very good night.
Night, everybody.